Hello, everyone. All right, I think I should be live. Let me just check. How is everyone? If you can't hear me on the mic, it should be good to go. I was testing it earlier, but we might not. You might not be hearing me. Can you hear me? Just let me know in the chat if everything's good. Okay, good. Thank you, Wellington. I appreciate you letting me know that that you can hear me. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Excited to be here today. So for those of you who don't know, who are just joining now, this is something I've started doing regularly, starting last month, 2 months ago, something like that, where I'm just doing an Ask Me Anything live stream. So feel free to, in the comments, ask me anything that you want to. The conversation in this video is going to be directed by you. So we'll talk about stuff. We'll see what pops up. And we're just going to have some fun. I just enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's going to be a good time. The only thing I will say is because this is my monthly Ask Me Anything live stream, my first questions are going to be from my Patreon. I only have 2 today. So if you give it my Patreon at the $10 above level, you get to ask a priority question, and I answer your questions first on this live stream. I'm just getting all the formality stuff out of the way so we can kind of get started. And the only thing I'll just to get the last formality stuff, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to help support me and you want to get your questions read, please support me over on Patreon. That really means a lot, especially since, as you can maybe tell in my video, I'm moving this in next week. So any financial help is certainly appreciated. But other than that, it's just fun, and we get to do some cool stuff. All right, so all that out of the way, let's get into it, and let's get going. And I see all your questions, and it's so cool. And Andre Jones, I love you as well. You were wonderful. Thank you for joining. I'm always so excited when people actually like talk and appear. You guys are wonderful, and I adore you. Okay, so let me just pull up our live stream, our Patreon questions first, so we can get those going. All right, well, the first one is from Wellington Marcus, and I know you're out there in the chat, so hello, Wellington. And also, I should say, Wellington, by the way, I know I promised to read the thing that you sent me, and I will get to it. Like I said, I'm moving, so I'll get to it after I move and everything's less hectic. But I just want to let you know it's still on my radar. I have not forgotten about it. And thank you, Continuum, for showing me some love and being like the best hype man. Continuum Trek, you are like the best hype person on like every live stream that I go to. I adore you. You are wonderful. Okay. So Wellington's first question, Jesse, I loved your video measuring a man. It brought up so many emotions and left me hopeful and validated. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching it. That one, that video was actually something I was really proud of, not only because it was part of the Captain Picard Day initiative that I was so, I was happy to organize, but also was just thankful. Like the whole point of that initiative was to try and create a community with a lot of the other Trek YouTubers here on YouTube, because unfortunately, when you look up Star Trek on YouTube, you get like the CBS stuff, and then you unfortunately get a lot of the negative, toxic stuff. And that's not to say you can't be critical of Star Trek Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Discovery. I'm more than happy to have people be negative about that, but there's certain YouTubers who are just toxic for toxic's sake and saying some really toxic stuff. So I wanted to find a way to promote some of the more positive YouTubers out here on YouTube, to be like, hey, look, there are people on YouTube who are kind, wonderful, caring people, even if they're negative on Discovery and Picard, and just sort of bring us together as a community so that we could talk to each other. And there's been a really awesome like Twitter DM session where we keep talking to each other, and also just like promote for other people, and also just like do something positive within the YouTube fandom. So that was something that was important to me. And then also, if you watch the video, you can tell that that video was something that I wrote a lot about my own personal feelings as a trans person, and how I connected that to Picard and to Star Trek, and saw a lot of those themes in it. And those are the kind of videos that I want to try doing more going forward, trying to speak about philosophy, speak about politics, speak about what I see in science fiction that means something to us as humans, but also speak from a very personal place as well. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because that video, honestly, is one of my videos I'm most proud of. Anyways, get back to your question, Wellington. My question is, which Doctor would you want to travel with? For me, it's a toss-up between the fourth, and I'm assuming you're talking about Doctor Who Doctors, not Star Trek Doctors, between the fourth Doctor, because he's my Doctor, and because of Romana and K9, and 11th because of Amy and Rory and River. Okay, so I thought about, I had an answer for this when I saw your question pop up, and then it kind of fell away from me. I've kind of forgotten it, but I will say, I haven't watched much of classic Doctor Who, and I know that that's a failing on my part. But if I had to think about it, I would probably say, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of the current run of Doctor Who, I think I would probably have the most fun traveling with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Let me give you my answer. The ninth Doctor, he feels like he's so like dealing with his own PTSD and aloof and kind of like hurt. Not that like that makes someone a bad person to hang out with, but he just doesn't seem as fun. The 10th Doctor, I love the 10th Doctor. He's my personal favorite Doctor. David Tennant is my personal favorite Doctor of all time. However, his companions tend to have very, very bad endings. I guess Rose ends okay, and Freeman Agyeman, Martha is okay. But they're not exactly the happiest of endings, and generally don't really have good endings. So I don't know if I necessarily would like to go with the 10th Doctor, because I don't know if I would end all right. The 11th Doctor is a much more fun Doctor, but he's also like has a lot of weight, and he also feels like he gets you into a lot of like wibbly wobbly timey-wimey trouble, like with Amy and Rory being like having to deal with the whole stuff with their daughter, and without spoilers and things like that. But though I do love Matt Smith's Doctor. 12th Doctor would actually be more fun, I think, as well. I did like the 12th Doctor, but he's like a teacher, and I kind of maybe I would have fun with the 12th Doctor, because I kind of like the teacher vibe. And it's like, oh, I get to learn on this adventure. So 12th Doctor would be fun, but I will say the 13th Doctor, as much as I'm not the biggest fan, like I said, I enjoy the 13th Doctor stories. I don't really think they've ever hit like super high for me as compared to other seasons, but give it time. They may. But she does have the most like familial sense with her companions, and I feel like I would pretty much really enjoy that. I think that would be a lot of fun. I kind of like the community fam sense that show has at the time. I think that's something that they should lean into more, honestly. Okay, so next question and last of my Patreon questions is from Mari Nekar. Sorry, I can't be there in real time since I'll be at a family event during the live stream. I love your videos. Often you put my own existing unorganized thoughts into words far more eloquently than I could. I find it ironic I screwed up the word eloquently. And at other times, maybe more importantly, you make me consider and understand points of view that I've been blind to before. Thank you so much, Mari. That is super kind and exactly what I want my videos to do. So I'm honestly thankful that is actually what it's doing. So thank you so much. So my question is, how do you maintain such a busy production schedule? I think I've counted at least a dozen videos so far this month, while still putting so much thought and quality into each one, especially when you have to shift between different topics. Star Trek, Doctor Who, gender. Sorry, there's a plane going overhead if that catches on the microphone. Responding to whatever surprise just happened in the news. Whatever your secret is, time machine, and may I borrow it? Thank you, and please keep up the great work. How do I keep my busy schedule? Probably slightly unhealthily to a degree. So just to give background on my life, I consider in my mind, I essentially work 3 jobs. I have a full-time job working at, I'm going to move this down, working at a marketing company as a YouTube producer, which is ironic considering I'm a communist lefty, but working in a marketing company. But I enjoy the people there. I enjoy the work. And so I work that job full time, and that job at least is very kind and enable me really flexible hours. So I'm able to like go home and do stuff and work from home and things like that. So I'm very thankful for that. And then secondly, I also, for those of you who don't know, I write for Gamma Ray, which is a company that works for Skybound, which is why I don't write much about Walking Dead, just because I make money from that company. So I don't want to necessarily talk about that show. But anyways, I write for that show. I do I do videos for them, do like lore breakdowns and things like that, and that's a lot of fun. And then I also do YouTube, which I consider to be a job in a way, in a job that I enjoy and love. So I have those two jobs, and technically, and how I break stuff out is for my videos. I actually plan my major videos. I plan to do one major video a month or a week, excuse me. And I plan that out about a month in advance. So I have all of February's videos, major videos planned, and right now shot and edited. So I do those about a month in advance. So right now I am finishing writing all of my March videos. So they're pretty much all set and written. And then, sorry again if you hear that plane. I'm so glad I'm moving it at the end of this month because I live in Hollywood, which is the noisiest part of LA, and it drives me up a wall. So I'm very excited that I'm moving. And hopefully we'll get a much better set than like the crap that you see behind me. Anyways, so where was I? Yeah, so I plan out my videos a month in advance, my major ones. So those are the ones that I have the most editing on, the most thought into. Those are the ones that I usually release on Fridays. And then I kind of film them all in a batch. So I write them all, and then I take one day of my weekend. And oh, David Deister, thank you so much. I really appreciate your super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I will get to your question in just a second. Thank you. Sorry, yeah. I always get surprised when people give, and I'm so thankful for it. Anyways, I plan my videos out a month in advance. I film them all in a batch. So one day I just take my, Saturday or Sunday, and I just film 4 videos, just do it all right in a row. And then I try and edit those over the course of the next week or two and try to get them all down and done. And then I kind of take a week away from them. And then I come back to them the week before the end of the month to just basically go through, check them again, make sure they're all up to snuff. Maybe I change my thoughts on something, maybe add in a few lines here or there, change and edit. And then once my Patreon for the next month rolls around and I see who my new Patreons are for the month, I make sure to add their names, export them, put them up on YouTube. So all my major videos, my Friday videos, are on YouTube at the end of the month and get them all sort of slated and done there. And I'll rearrange maybe some of them depending on if like something big comes up and I have a thought and I want to get a video out real quick. And then from there, like my reviews and stuff, I just, when I watch when a show comes out that I want to review, like Doctor Who or Star Trek Picard, I immediately pop up and I immediately just like watch the show as soon as it comes out. So Picard is up at midnight, so I have to watch it at midnight, and I film right after that, so I'm up till 2 a.m. Thanks, CBS, for that. You couldn't release it at 8 o'clock and give me a good night's sleep. Whatever, it's fine. So then I film the review, put it up, and it goes up. And then the other videos that I do, I just sort of like, if I have time and there's something that is particularly speaking to me, I will sit down and be like, all right, let's either write this out, or sometimes if it's just like me ranting at the camera, I'll set up my green screen and I'll do it that way. So that's basically my process. I think the biggest thing that for me is just planning in advance. I like to plan in advance. I like to think in advance. I like to make sure that I'm someone who I like to get things done as quickly as possible. Not like, in the amount of time it takes them, but I like to get them done as quickly as possible just so that I can, not have to have them on my mind. Because if I have something on my mind, I get stressed and anxious. So my brain's always just works like, write everything you want out, get a list done, and then just cross things off the list. So that's basically how I do it. Okay, so let me get into some of the questions in the live stream. Sorry that I've been ignoring you guys, but I wanted to make sure that I focused on my Patreon questions first. All right, so now I can actually talk to you guys. And let me actually answer David's question first because of the super chat. And again, thank you, David, so much. I really appreciate that. So my Trek show is an animated series called Star Trek: The New Human Adventure. This show will take place between the motion picture and Wrath of Khan. What Star Trek show would you like to create? Ooh, okay. So I actually have 3 Star Trek pitches that I have in my brain. And one of them is one that, I work in, Hollywood and LA, and I'm kind of trying to work in the industry. Even though I work in a marketing company, I still try and do like writing and things like that. And trying to direct some short films and things like that. So I have in my back pocket, like if someone called me into a room and said, "This is your pitch. You can make a Star Trek pitch." I know exactly what I would pitch. However, the pitch that I was going to make has kind of been stolen, not stolen, wrong word, has been kind of taken and used by both Star Trek Picard now and Star Trek Discovery Season 3 seems like it's going to be kind of doing this, like doing a similar idea to what I had, which I think is like nice news. It's like, oh, my idea was good enough to actually make it on the show. That's kind of cool. It means that, that's validating in a way. And also it's kind of like, dang it, I have to come up with a new idea now. That is my pitch. But I'll kind of give you the brief rundown of that one without going too much detail because I do want to save some of it. But it would be a show set about in the 26th century, basically after the Federation has been completely. Basically, the Borg attacked hundreds of years ago, and they were able to defeat the Borg, but it basically destroyed the Federation. Everything's dead. Everything's destroyed. No one's really, a lot of planets are, left crippled after this Borg attack. And because of that, the Federation starts to crumble. The Starfleet becomes much more militaristic. They become much more of a, like, let's kind of become fascist, not super down. I don't want to go that dark, but they do become much more militaristic and focused, which starts again to make the Federation all fall apart. And Doria leaves the Federation, different things like that. And eventually it comes to the point where the Federation just dissolves. And this is all backstory. This doesn't happen on the show. And humanity becomes very isolationist. Now, set during the show, we meet a character as a kid who is half human, half Andorian. And she is been living on Earth by her whole life. And, because humanity is kind of an isolationist, she hasn't really ever gone out into the stars. Humanity hasn't really gone out into the stars. And she has dealt with sort of xenophobia her whole life because she is a half human, half alien living on Earth, and Earth has been somewhat xenophobic. So we get to see her as a kid, but then we flash forward as an adult, and humanity has started to find itself again. This is where the show really starts. They found themselves again. They want to do the right thing. They are the humanity that we see and love in Star Trek that is better than ourselves. They finally have reached that point again. They found their way back to themselves. But now they need to prove that to the world. Now they need to prove that to the universe and go out. So what they do is they create a new enterprise, and they have this half-human Andorian who's joined Starfleet because she wanted to see the stars. She was always inspired to see the stars and see what's out there. She becomes the captain of this new ship, and they basically say, your goal is to go out and reform diplomatic relationships with every single alien race. So what this does is it sets us on a new, like, seek out new life and new civilization storyline with, we can tell different stories every week. But it also allows us to kind of play with the same toys, but shift around the toy box. So my thought would be like the Klingons would not be the Klingon Empire anymore. They're actually subjugated. Another race has come in, taking over the Klingon Empire, and the Klingon Empires are essentially like a slave race. So what do you do when you have a warrior race that has so much pride built up in them that now they're a slave race? What does that do to them? And so you can kind of like shift around the toy box. And I have other ideas with different races I would play with, but I'll kind of keep that in my own brain in case, that ever is a story that I get to pitch to somebody. And the only other thing I would say is her first officer on the new Enterprise would be a Mako. He would be a Mako first officer who would be he would start the series off as being like, I don't trust you. I don't like you. We shouldn't be all nice and goody two shoes with these people. But by the end of the series, without spoiling, I have a season-long arc that this would feed into that, again, I'll kind of save for my own brain. But there is a season-long arc that I have plotted out that would kind of talk about the ideals of Star Trek and the Federation, and kind of play with them a little bit. By the end of the season, he would be a character who would become good. He would understand that it's not about fighting, but about creating love and peace in his mind. And there's a story beat that I would play with that I think would be a lot of fun. But again, I'm going to kind of save that. And then my 2 other Star Trek shows that I would pitch. Sorry, I'm going off on this. I want to read some other questions. Apologies, but this has just piqued my interest. My other 2 ones would be, one, I would love to see a Star Trek show that focused more on the politics of Star Trek, kind of like a West Wing in space, kind of following the president of the Federation, just to flesh out that world, and also to have a Star Trek show that isn't focused necessarily on Starfleet characters. And then my 3rd show would be one that is another civilian-based one that would be kind of like a Wild West town on a planet, like a frontier planet, kind of feeding into that like Wagon Train to the Stars Western feel. It'd be very, very like Firefly in that sense, like very much set in the Star Trek world, very planet-based, but very like Western Firefly feel. Okay, so that's enough of that. I want to make sure I get to other people's questions. I'm going to go back through and start looking at some other questions. Let's see. Also, I should say, David, I love the New Human Adventure idea. That's a cool concept. All right, I'm going to try and focus on what's going on right now in the chat, just because I don't want to go too far back. So if I missed your question and I didn't see it, please feel free to reiterate it. Lorcan Nagel, who is your favorite captain and why is it Sisko? My favorite captain, actually, this is hard because I do like Picard for a lot of the reasons that I state in my video, the Captain Picard Day video. And I do love Sisko because I do find him to be the most morally intriguing one, but I also love his relationship with Dax quite a bit. But favorite captain, I gotta give it. This might just be recency bias, so apologies if it is, but it might be Anson Mounts Pike. I've done several videos on Anson Mounts Pike on here, and I just think he is probably the best embodiment of like what I want a Starfleet captain to be. He is thoughtful. He is always focused on negotiating, but he enables discourse, and he's kind and open and funny, and just absolutely lovely and wonderful. And Anson Mount plays him to like perfection on that show. I think he just did such a great job, and I'm so hopeful we get a Pike series. So I just want more of him. I want more of Ethan Peck, who I love Ethan Peck. I love his acting. I love his voice. And I'm kind of very attracted to Ethan Peck. So there is that element of it in there, especially bearded Ethan Peck, which is why I'm like, minor spoilers for Star Trek Picard. This is the most minor of minor. The fact it's in fact that an actor, isn't it? So don't worry too much about it. But there is an actor on Star Trek Picard playing a Romulan character named Narek, who also has a beard, who I called in my review Ethan Peck Light, as a joke, but I am also very aware that I'm going to have a problem watching his character on Star Trek Picard because I am very much attracted to him, and he's very much my type, at least physically. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But going back to it, Pike might be my favorite captain, but again, that might be recency bias. Maybe over time that'll settle down, but I do really, really adore Anson Mounts Pike. All right. Are you going to use the Enterprise J in your show? If I ever did that, maybe just to tie it into continuity. I don't really like the Enterprise J design. I thought it was kind of silly and dumb. And I think most people think that too. It was, never know. Might happen. We'll see how that would play out. What if you're half Andorian, were an ambassador rather than a captain who would command the overall mission but has conflict with the captain of the ship? That would be interesting. I could do it that way. I do have some storylines in mind for that would play with that a little bit, her being the captain, though. And I kind of like the conflict between captain and first officer that would kind of like be like Janeway and Chakotay and like pay that off a little better than that show ever really did. Not that I don't like Voyager. I love Voyager, but that never really paid off the antagonism between those two characters in a way that I thought it could and should have. I think that would be a fun dynamic. Plus, I just think it, having the show center on a captain character just, fits Star Trek more. Not saying that you couldn't do it. Discovery, I think, does it well, not focusing on the captain. But I think it's just an easier way to do it than like an ambassador character. But again, it could be, and that's something that like if I sat down and started developing the show, that might happen. Lorcan asked, if you want a West Wing novel in the Federation, have you read the novel Articles of the Federation and A Singular Destiny? I have. They're fantastic. I've actually talked about them in a previous video, so I don't want to spend too much time on that here. But yes, I have, and they're fantastic. If you want really good political Star Trek books, read especially Articles of the Federation and A Singular Destiny as well. Video games, do you play them? David Meir asked. If so, are you excited about the launch of the new consoles later this year? I do. I actually do play video games. I play a ton of video games. I love video games. Play a little bit less of them now that I'm an adult. This is the common problem that I know many adults deal with. Like, as you get older, it's like I have less time to play them because I'm doing stuff. But I do really enjoy playing video games. What was the one that I just played that I really, really loved? Right now I'm playing Outer Wilds. I'm playing Outer Worlds right now, but the game that was my favorite this year, and I want to make a video on at some point, is Outer Wilds. That game helped me so much with a lot of my anxiety. I thought it was one of the most beautiful games that I've ever played. I'm going to do a video on it at some point when I have the time and do like an ode to Outer Wilds, because that game is, I think, one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. It's available on Xbox Game Pass. If you haven't, play Outer Wilds. It maybe not be the game for everybody, but I think it's beautiful. At the very least, listen to the soundtrack. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful game. I am excited about the consoles coming out this next year. Money is going to be a bit tight this year just because I have surgery coming up and I'm moving. So we'll see where I'm at money-wise once the consoles come around. So I may not get them right away, but I will get them at some point. I am curious about this generation of consoles because, I don't know, there's only so many incremental changes you can make, and I feel like we're hitting an influx point where like the next video game console isn't going to change much, except for like a little bit of graphical tweaking and like user interfaces and stuff. And I think it'll certainly be a step up, but it's like I don't feel the need to change my consoles as much and as quickly anymore. So I'm really kind of curious to see that. I see a lot of people like loving the Enterprise J down in the comments. I will say I don't love the Enterprise J. I did love it when I was a kid because I'm like, yeah, we get to see more of the future, and I was always so excited to see anything past Nemesis at that point. But I don't know. I just like if you see the pictures of like how huge it is compared to like the other ships, I'm like, Jesus, it's like a planet. It quite literally is gigantic ship. It fits like 5 Enterprise E's inside of it, if I remember that correctly. It's just huge, so it always weirded me out. And then I'm like, the nacelles are just like tiny on the back. That's me. Like I said, if you love the Enterprise J, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. It just was always a weird design for me, and they made it kind of hastily, if I recall, for that episode. They kind of shoved it together really quickly. Not to say that good things can't come out of that, but. David Ferry asks, I have an LGBT question for you. My daughter just came out as trans. Is there anything you wish someone had told you when you began transitioning that you would like to pass on to her? Ooh, okay. Something that, and I'm going to talk about this in a video because I'm doing a video later this month about my surgeries and why I want to get the surgeries and like my kind of, not to justify it because I don't feel like I need to justify the decision, but more just to like explain how I got to the decision, because I didn't always want to get those surgeries, and I kind of have come to the realization that I do for my own mental health. But I'll talk about that in the video. The advice that I would give to anybody who has come out as transitioning is allow yourself time to figure yourself out and understand that you're not going to know yourself instantly. And this is something that anyone can take, not just trans. But when I came out as transgender, and I think a lot of trans people experience this, is when you come out, especially for me as a trans, I'll speak from my experience. I can't necessarily speak for trans men or something like that. But as a trans woman, when I came out, I tended to feel like more of a stereotype of a woman. I only wore dresses. I wore a ton of makeup. I wore try to be more feminine, speak with a higher voice, that sort of thing, and kind of played that up. And that felt affirming. And I know a lot of trans people do that because it's like, oh, I haven't been able to be the person that I wanted to be for so long that I want to try and just be that and exist in that. But I also realized as I went through that didn't feel entirely authentic to me. And as I've gone on, I've come to realize that I'm more comfortable playing with gender. Like right now I'm like wearing like kind of like a more masculine outfit, but I'm wearing makeup and nail polish and earrings and have like long hair. I like that sort of playing with my gender identity and my gender presentation. And I like that ability to have fun and be flexible in that. And that took me a lot of time to be confident in that. and a long time to be to understand that. And part of that was hard to figure out, but also part of it was fun. And I guess this is a addendum to what I was going to say, is like, allow yourself to have fun figuring yourself out. You know, we talk about being trans as this like really like, oh, it's a hard experience, and it is. It can be hard to like not be acknowledged for who you are, not be acknowledged as being seen as the gender that you are, and the amount of crap that you get as a trans person. Like the annoying amount of comments that I get on my videos that saying like, oh, you're trans, you're horrible. I've ignored them at this point because they're basically the same comment repeated by whatever. So it doesn't even hurt me anymore. It's just like, all right, yeah, that's comment again. So yeah, that we tend to focus on that as trans as being like this hard experience, and I think it is. But I also think that there is something really, really beautiful, really, really beautiful about being transgender, and I think that it's this liberation to be able to play with how you get to be seen by the world. And sometimes it can be stressful, but sometimes it can be really, really fun. And I just like having fun figuring out who I am. And there's moments where I just take the time to be like, you know, I get to be who I am every day now. And it's nice to just stop and realize that every once in a while. Like, you know, I get to wake up and put on the clothes that I wear and hear the pronouns that I want to hear. And I remember a time in my life where I was crying thinking I would never have that in my life, that I would never sorry, I'm gonna make myself cry a little bit, but I just remember a time in my life that I would spend like I would go into the shower and just cry because I wouldn't want my parents to know that I was crying and what I was crying about, and feeling like the thing that today I get to live every day, I thought that was something I would never get to have. And the fact that that is my everyday now, you know, it's nice to just take a moment like right now and acknowledge that that's a thing. That is my everyday now. Yeah. So so that's it's a meaningful thing. So just I guess the best advice, I've kind of like rambled through a few of them, but just allow yourself to find yourself. And that's advice I would give to anybody, not just trans people. But take the time to stop and think about some of the joyous parts of your journey, because there's going to be crap. Unfortunately, being a trans person in today's world, there's going to be crap. You're going to get crap. But take a moment to just appreciate the joyous thing of being trans. And I think that's something we don't think about enough. We talk a lot about how hard it is to be trans, and I think we need to stop and take a moment to talk about how beautiful it is. I think being trans is a beautiful experience. Just like every experience. I think everyone's experience in life can be beautiful in their own unique and wonderful ways. And that's what Star Trek teaches us, isn't it? That different paths are all beautiful, even if they are different. They're beautiful in their own different way. And I think it's just worth acknowledging and remembering that being trans is a beautiful thing. So yeah, that's I'll get off of that because I'm going to make myself cry a little bit on that. Okay. All right. See, I'm just trying to look for another question. Gregory Whitaker, good luck with your surgery or surgeries. Make sure to give yourself plenty of time for recovery. Thank you so much. My surgery date, for those of you who don't know, is well, I haven't announced it, so why would anyone know? I just found out the other day. March 10th, I am getting surgery, and I'm going to make a video talking a little bit more about that. But I'm getting 2 surgeries this year, and that one, March 10th, is that one. They're both trans-related surgeries. I'm going to save it for my video to talk a little bit more about them, but just because I want to make sure I talk about it in the way exactly that I want to talk about it, and kind of put it in words. And and continuing Trek, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying it's okay to cry, and also the super chat. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Anyways, yeah, the surgeries are coming up this month or next month, and I'm really looking forward to them. I'm gonna give myself time to recovery. My work, number one, my work is a lot of like, I do production, like video production, so I do have to lift stuff, but my boss is gonna be helpful for that. And then but then a lot of it's editing, so I'm easily able to sit. And then I've also been able to get a week off of work, and I'll probably do more my boss is like, take more. And I'm like, I'm going to need to work or else I'll go crazy. So we'll see where I'm at. But I'll talk about it in a later video. I'm sure you'll see me in a later live stream dealing with that. I probably will do, my hope is I want to do the video about my surgeries. That's going to kind of like, I'm going to film it before and after my surgery, and it's going to be kind of a discussion of how I feel before and after. And then I'll probably do a live stream while I'm still in recovery if I'm feeling up to it. We'll see how I feel, but if I'm feeling up to it, I'll probably do a live stream and just kind of a dissection and discussion of my feelings. So we'll talk about it more then. And all right, let's see what else. More questions. I feel like there's a lot of conversation going on that I'm missing here because there's some stuff going on about Picard. If anyone wants me to talk about Picard, I probably will try and like to stay spoiler free for those who haven't seen it. But if you want to reiterate some questions on the bottom, just because I'm trying to dig through and see what I've missed so far. So apologies if I've missed anyone's thoughts and feelings. Should David? No offense, David. I've already seen one from you, so I want to make sure I get some other people. Mr. S, so tired of new YouTube. Well, women aren't limited to female traits of personality, whatever that means. I don't think you transition, you mean you lose all of the traits that make you you because you're still you then. Yes, I agree. Being trans, but this is something that, like I said, a lot of trans people go through, is they come out as trans and they want to be affirmed in their gender identity. I was going to say new gender, but they're not. It's not a new gender. It's gender they've always had. They just haven't revealed it to the world yet. But a lot of us tend to be like, and I'm not delegitimizing if people, want to be sort of like hyper feminine. But a lot of trans people, trans women especially, like be like, yeah, I'm going to be hyper feminine because that feels affirming of who I want to be. And then from there, they sort of like learn and like, oh no, maybe this doesn't fit. Maybe this doesn't fit. I mean, that's what a lot of people in puberty are doing. And trans people, when you come out, it's kind of like a second puberty, not just in taking hormones, but also in like figuring yourself out. It's very much like, all right, I have to like learn a new way to present into the world. And that's what like teenagers are doing. They're trying to figure out how to present in the world that feels comfortable for them. And trans people do that generally at an older age because they come out older. Again, it's all different for everybody, different strokes for every trans person. Every trans person's different. Every trans person's journey is different. There are some similarities, obviously, but some trans people are hyper feminine. Me, I'm a little less, even though I do like to identify as a woman. So yeah, it's all just fun. Okay, let's see. Hey, do you all imagine Worf reimagined as a disco type of Klingon? That would be rad. This is actually a fun story. I ran into Mary Chiefo the other night, which was cool. I got a picture with her, and she's one of the most wonderful humans. And one of the interesting things, talking about the Klingon redesigns, I was not someone who hated the Klingon redesign. I know there's a lot of people that hated it. I don't particularly hate the Klingon redesign in Discovery. I think it's fine. My biggest problem with the Klingon redesign, and I'm actually doing a video next month about the Klingon designs and how it's evolved over time and how there was like a lot of like racist stereotypes built into the design of Klingons, like namely yellow face and black face. So look for that video. I'm kind of excited about that one. But one of the things I did love about the Klingon redesign is that they added a lot of different colors, skin colors to the Klingons. So it wasn't like, oh, look, they're all, in blackface. They had like purple Klingons, white Klingons, things like that, which was kind of nice. And I thought it looked really, really good. But the one problem that I had with it was less of a visual problem and more of an actor problem, is that they gave the Klingon design this like prosthetic that goes over their chin, which really limited the actors' mouths. So they had to like talk like this, and they couldn't like move their mouths as much, which is very, very limiting to an actor, which is someone who like, I want to be a director and I love working with actors. It's one of my favorite things to do. I hate when you limit an actor in that way. Now, there's definitely ways to get around it. Like look at Doug Jones. He does a phenomenal job in all of his makeup. He's like perfected the art of physical acting. Doug Jones is amazing as Saru, and and every in Shape of Water, in Pan's Labyrinth, all the stuff that he's done. So you can do it, but it's always like hard to be like, let's limit an actor. And Star Trek unfortunately has a long history of that. I think the worst one was Geordi LaForge. As cool as it was to have a blind character on the show, it's so limiting to an actor to take away his eyes. And I really loved in the movies that they still kept him blind, but they gave him the cybernetic implant so that you could at least have the actor show his eyes. And because you take away an actor's eyes, that's one of his biggest tools to connecting with his other actors. And so that's really kind of a hard thing to do. My only problem with the Klingon redesign was not even visual. I thought visually they looked great. I just think that just limiting the actors with that chin thing was a bit of a mistake. But again, you can get around it, and I think like Mary Chieffo, to be the stunning example, did a great job with it, regardless. Like, you can definitely make it work. You can even use it to your advantage. I think like Doug Jones really uses his limitations in the outfits he's in to his advantage, and makes it like part of his character's design and movements. So yeah. Movie comrades. Hi, thank you so much for your videos. They're really provoking. Have you read the Enterprise Riders of the Federation novels? I haven't read a ton of them. I read, what was the ones that I read? I read the one where, spoilers if anyone cares, where you learn that Trip didn't actually die, that it was just a Section 31 cover up, and that the holodeck recreation that you see in These Are the Voyages where Trip dies was actually just a fake history, fake news, as it were. Excuse me, burp there. Well, I said fake news because I'm using a terrible phrase. But anyways, yeah. So I read some of them. I actually, if someone wants to find it, I'm actually going to do a video on this at some point, but I actually wrote fan fiction when I was younger. One was a fan fiction series that I wrote myself. But I also wrote for virtual season of Enterprise, taking place season 5, 6, and 7 of Star Trek Enterprise, and they exist out in the world, and I think they're actually pretty good. And so I want to kind of share with them. So I was always invested more in my own fan fiction of Star Trek Enterprise past Enterprise ending than I was the books version. But I did read the books. I'm more of like a fan of the 24th century books than I am the Federate Enterprise one, even though I'm probably one of the bigger Enterprise fans out there. So I didn't finish those books. I do want to get to them at some point. I do recommend them. I am of the mind, and I was talking about this with my my soon-to-be new roommate the other night. I'm actually of the mind that I think some of the best Star Trek stories that exist are actually in the books. The books are fantastic. I love the Star Trek books so much. So if you ever get a chance to read the books, they're starting to do audiobooks again. They started doing Star Trek audiobooks about like 3 or 4 years ago again, which makes me so thankful. I love the audiobooks so much. It saves me time because I'm in LA, so I'm in traffic a lot. So it's really, really good. I would even say if you're looking for ones that are like kind of weird and fun, I would even say the William Shatner novels are great. They very much like Mary Sue Captain Kirk because they're written by William Shatner, so of course they would. And they bring Captain Kirk back from the dead after generations. But they're so fun. They're kind of like they're weird and crazy and definitely Mary Sue Captain Kirk, but they're like one of the best like crossover books. Like they have Kirk crossing over with Picard, crossing over with DS9, crossing over with Voyager stuff. So they're all fantastically done in that sense. And like I said, they get crazy. Like the first trilogy is all about Mary suing Captain Kirk. There's 3 trilogies. The first trilogy is all about Mary suing Captain Kirk. The second trilogy is all about Captain Kirk was literally created by the universe to save the universe. It's literally like the entire universe existed to birth Captain Kirk into existence. It's so weird and funny, but it's actually somewhat intriguing. And then the third trilogy is Kirk's child is Space Jesus. So take from that what you will. I think they're weird and wacky and funny, so I would enjoy them. All right. Let's see. The visor was a headband. Yeah, it was like the headband thing that they like kind of stuck on his face, Geordi's face. I love the DS9 series, 8 novels. Yes, the DS9 ones in particular are phenomenal. The stuff they do with Bashir and the stuff they like, the DS9 was the first relaunch that they were like, well, we'll write novels taking place after the show. And they did some really cool stuff. Like they actually made a Jem'Hadar, a character on the space station, like a recurring character, and doing some interesting stuff with him, which was really cool to see like a Jem'Hadar character start to develop. They did some cool stuff with Section 31 and Bashir. Ezri got some cool stuff. She actually, spoilers for this, but she got to be made a captain in the novels. And I'm a huge Ezri fan. I'm hoping we get to see Ezri in Picard. I doubt we will. I think that'd probably be one character we're probably never going to see. We'll probably see Dax again in Discovery, my guess would be, because they've already shown that we're going to Trill. So I would be surprised if we didn't see Dax pop up in Discovery. But we probably won't see Ezri Dax specifically again, unfortunately, which is sad because I loved her. All right, more questions. What are your thoughts on Star Wars from above and beyond developing potential CIC? I did a video on Star Wars. I'm gonna probably do one that focuses on like intertextuality in Star Wars. I think Star Wars is in an interesting place right now where it's kind of where Star Trek was in 2009, 2010, 2011, around Into Darkness. While I do love the JJ movies, I do love 2009 Trek, and I like parts of Into Darkness. Into Darkness, I thought, was the peak of Star Trek trying to chase its own tail, where there was a lot of things in Into Darkness that were just references to the fact that, like, oh, look, it's Star Trek. Look at this thing. Look, Khan's here. Look, we made reference to Section 31. Look, we made reference to the Daystrom Institute. Isn't that cool and intriguing that we, like, reference the stuff that you like? And I think that was peak of that. And not to say that there's good stuff in Into Darkness. I don't hate it completely. It's one of the weaker Star Treks. Not as bad as Nemesis, though. But anyways, that was the peak of that. And we got elements of that in 2009 Star Trek to a degree, though I think a little less so. And then we got a ton of it in, ton of it in Into Darkness. And then we got a bit of it in Discovery as well, where Discovery's like, I love Discovery, but there is a bit of that, like, chasing the nostalgia intertextuality tale of, like, sorry, I'm blanking my thought. Discovery was a TOS set show. You get to see the Enterprise, you get to see some characters and stuff. Now I think Star Trek, and like they had like Burnham being, especially in the first scene, Burnham's related to Spock. Isn't that interesting? So we get to like have that, and I think they at least justified it, because I don't think that you can reference stuff. You can reference past stuff as long as you're using it in a way that feels like you're building upon it. Which is why I like Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Because they brought in Pike, they brought in Spock, but they like deepened those characters and made them feel necessary. It wasn't just like, we're going to bring in Spock because Spock, but we're bringing him in to say something with his character, to do something with his character. Same thing with Pike, to deepen his character. We're making it feel useful. So Into Darkness was like, let's just reference stuff. The reference to stuff. Discovery Season 1 had elements of that, but got a little less so. And then even less so, when they actually had the confidence to use these tools that they have naturally, as opposed to just bring them up to bring them up. Bringing that back to Star Wars, I think Star Wars was kind of in that place. The newest trilogy of Star Wars, while I didn't hate it, I do like a lot of the new Star Wars, and I even made a whole video on it. I think Star Wars was kind of chasing its own tail. It was trying to find ways to recreate the same moments that we had already seen. And by doing that, you are automatically already going to have diminishing returns. It's trying to say, oh, we're going to do the same thing that we did again, and you're going to like it because that's what you liked. And I'm like, yeah, I do enjoy this. It is fun, but you're not developing anything super intriguing. And I thought the elements that were interesting the most to me in that series were the ones that were least like the original Star Wars trilogy. Like the fact that we're like, all right, we got a new empire, we got a new rebellion again. I didn't care, and it didn't really make sense in the story. But like Ben Solo having to deal with the legacy of Kylo Ren having to deal with the legacy of his family. Luke being someone, and I know this is controversial, but I really like the Luke stuff in Last Jedi. I don't love Last Jedi overall. It's not. I will say this. Last Jedi, I think, has some of the best stuff in Star Wars ever. I think it has some of the best scenes Star Wars has ever had. And I think it has some of the worst scenes that Star Wars has ever had. And so it makes for a movie that I can't say I love and I can't say I hate. It's just a movie that I watch and I'm like, I love this and then I hate this, and it makes me feel so many emotions so quickly because I think it has some dumb stuff, some great stuff. Anyways, I liked Luke's arc in that because it was like something new for Star Wars. It showed us a hero who had failed and needed to grow and learn. And I really liked that for his character. But the rest of that trilogy was just sort of like chasing old stuff. And so I really hope Star Wars kind of follows the Star Trek route where like they start to do new things with that series, that you can kind of say different things in Star Wars, but still make it feel like Star Wars and not chasing its own reference tail, not chasing its own nostalgia. And I think that Star Trek has just started to get beyond that, where like, look, they have the confidence with Discovery. It's like, look, we have a series that is our own, and we reference stuff, but like we have our own characters that we really love, we really like, and it is something that is unique to this era of Star Trek. And now we can go and do Picard and use Picard in a way that feels natural towards his character. It doesn't feel like we're bringing him back just to bring him back. It feels like we're bringing him back for a reason. And I think that's how you do that sort of thing, as opposed to Star Wars. So I really hope that Star Wars is now past this point of like lets us reference stuff and starts being able to now tell its own stories. Tell unique stories that only Star Wars can tell, but still feel new and fresh. And I think that that's, as we're getting into the age of franchises that just keep going and going and going and going, like we have so many different franchises that just exist, that's going to be part of the cycle of figuring it out. I think that that's actually part of a natural part of it, that we're going to get things that are trying to be what is the series, now that we've said the thing that we initially said, what's the next thing that we say with Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever franchise, Doctor Who, and kind of having that sort of debate with itself. All right. Cybuck, as said in Star Trek V, grew up as a part with Spock and his Vulcan princess mother. That was my one thing that I really hated about Star Trek Discovery Season 2. This is I'm probably the only one that thought of this, or not thought of this. I'm not the only one that thought of this, but the only one that was upset by this. But I really wanted Cybuck. And it doesn't mean we're not going to get Cybuck. No one wants to reference Star Trek V, which is sad, because I think Star Trek V is a terrible movie, but a fun one in a weird way. So bad it's good. And I felt like they were setting up Cybuck. Cybuck as a character is all about faith, and they said Season 2 of Discovery is all about faith. So I'm like, oh, well, and you're bringing in Spock, you're bringing in Burnham. So I'm like, who part of the Spock family is all about faith? And I thought Cybuck would have been a perfect fit. I thought Cybuck might have been the Red Angel at one point. I think I have even a video with a thumbnail of Cybuck. Never going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but there was a part of me that was like, I would have liked Cybuck to have shown up, or at least get a reference. Rack, can't stay but early morning from an American in Australia. Love your channel. Thank you, Rack, for showing up. You are wonderful. Lucas VF Novak, I loved your video about Star Trek books. Thank you for it. Do you have any recommendations for more science exploration mystery focused Star Trek books? I do. There's actually a book video coming out next week about a Star Trek book. It's probably not the one that you really want, but it's a Star Trek book video coming out next week that I'm doing. Mystery focused. What's a good mystery focused Star Trek novel? I think I just read one that was intriguing. Why am I blanking on it? Any of the Section 31 books with Bashir are great mystery novels. I think there's Section 31 Control is a Bashir one that is really good. There's an earlier one that I'm blanking on the name of, but there is an earlier Section 31 Bashir book. It came out in 2007 or 8. I'd look for that one. I forget the name of it, but I would really recommend, any of the Section 31 books that have come out. They did one for each series and then a few other ones here and there. But if you're looking for good mystery novels set in the Star Trek universe, any of the Section 31 books are great places to start, with my biggest recommendation being the first Deep Space Nine one they did, which name I can't remember. So that's the recommendation I would give you. Maybe we should petition for a Cybuck short trek. I would love the crap out of that. Let's get me a Cybuck short trek. There's actually that discussion coming out that apparently their original idea for Star Trek Picard was that they were just going to get Patrick Stewart back for a short trek. And then that sort of developed further into the actual show. So that's sort of intriguing. So that would be a cool place. Isn't there one of Cardassian Mysteries where everyone's guilty? Yes. I haven't read many of the Cardassian ones. They're mostly about Una McCormick. But I've heard great things about them. I just haven't gotten to them in time. But if you want some, I think the Cardassian ones I've heard are very good political novels, which I do want to get to them because of that. So I would highly recommend that. Lorcan asked with gay actors. When we achieve full communism, we'll liberate all Star Trek copyrights to public domain, and people will be able to write and release whatever Star Trek stories they want. Yes, I agree. Let's do it. I do think stories need to go more public domain. I think we see that with Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is a character that has flourished because he has gone into the public domain. So I would really love that to a degree. And there's something to be said for continuity, keep Star Trek in continuity, keep it with one right shoulder so there can be a steady flow of stories that feel like they're all fit into one universe. And that's worth saying. But I would say that I would like to open up things to have more people have say in them. Again, Sherlock Holmes. We get so many brilliant Sherlock Holmes stories, some bad, some good, but it's because he's in the public domain that we're able to have more of him. So I really agree. I think that would be great. Hey, Stefan Schuhart. I would need to subscribe to CBS on Prime to see Short Treks. Picard is free. Yeah, that's fine. I liked the short treks. I did a video ranking them. Short treks, I think, are really enjoyable and fun. They're not necessary, I think, in any way, which I think is kind of their purpose. They're like fun little bits, pieces to flesh out the universe. The only one that I think is like you need to watch this one is Calypso. If you can go and see the short trek Calypso, Stefan, I would highly recommend that one. I think it's one of the most beautiful things Star Trek's ever done. To be honest, it's really, really good. I also like Q&A quite a bit, but that one's not as necessary. But I think Calypso is just a beautiful short trek. Let's see. Una McCormack's Never-Ending Sacrifice is one of the best Trek novels, all about Regula Pardar, the Kardashian child raised by Bajorans. Interesting. Yeah, Calypso. Calypso is awesome. Bring hankies. Yes, it made me weep. Let's see. I'm just trying to find, if I haven't answered, like I said, I'm trying to go through and find questions as I go through, but if I haven't answered it yet, please make sure to put it in the text chat. You can ask me anything. And I'm also going to probably finish up in about 10-15 minutes. So we'll go for another 10-15 minutes here. And we'll see. How do you feel about the fast cuts in Picard? The primary jarring hard cuts between beats were the only things that I really disliked. Loved the show, though. All right, so let's. I might as well start talking about Star Trek Picard a little bit. If anyone wants to, I'll try and stay somewhat spoiler-free from the big stuff if people haven't seen it. So don't worry, I'll try and stay away from big spoiler stuff, but I'll just talk sort of generally about my thoughts on the show. If you want my spoiler thoughts, go check out my review video. The hard cuts, yeah, I think the problem with it was, in that sense, is that, especially for this first episode, really focused on Picard and then a little bit on Daj. And so we only really have two kind of storylines going on. And so they don't really have much to cut away to. And so it kind of felt jarring because it's like, well, we can either cut to Daj or we can cut to Picard and not really much else with our stories going on right now. And I think it'll change as the story goes along because we're obviously going to get introduced to new characters, more characters. And I understand them wanting to focus very much on Picard for the first episode because that's the show. So I think as the show goes on, we get more plot lines, more characters. They'll be able to have better cuts to different actions. But that episode felt a little bit jarring just because they didn't have anywhere to like cut to. And I think you can see that kind of being forced in the, again, minor spoiler, with the Daj scene where she's in the alleyway. That scene felt so forced. Like she ran away just so we could get that scene and then immediately finds Picard again. So it's kind of like, okay, that felt like you just did that so you could have a cutaway scene and just show her on the run, and it didn't really fit. So I think that's a little bit of a flaw. I don't think it's a flaw. It's a flaw that I think is just inherent in the pilot of it that I think will probably get better as we get more episodes fleshed out. But yeah, I think that's sort of my big problem with that. And the only other major problem I didn't mention in my review that I meant to, but I forgot in the moment, was there was a couple on the nose lines that I didn't particularly love. Like, for example, when Picard goes into the Daystrom Institute and he sees the empty room and he goes, "It's a ghost town." And I'm like, I saw that. I saw that it was a ghost town from the shot. You didn't need to have Picard say it. And there was a couple lines like that where there was a bit like bonk, bonk on the head. Let me say what we already just saw. And I kind of got naturally. And maybe some people require that, like a little extra nudge to get the point across. But there was just a couple lines that I thought were just like, you could have, if someone, it would literally have just been like someone going through the script and be like, yeah, we don't need that line. Just cut it out. Or even in the editing room, just cut out that line, which is like small. That if that's the level of nitpick that I'm at, then that's fine. I have no problem with a few weird lines here or there, but that's just sort of my thought on that. What do you think of having an anthology series set in Star Trek? Well, that what David asked. Yes, that was actually the original pitch for Discovery. That each season was going to be in a new era of Star Trek and doing a new thing. My guess was that it probably had to do with the Spore Drive, where it was like you'd be sticking with this crew, but then the Spore Drive would like jump them to a different era of Star Trek, and they'd kind of have to deal with that for a season. But yeah, I think that was the original pitch for Discovery, was that it was going to be a pseudo anthology series. I would like that. I mean, I guess that's kind of what Short Treks is to a degree. And I think we're getting enough Trek shows as it is now that I don't think we need the anthology series. If we only had like one, maybe two Trek series going on, an anthology series would make sense. But I think that there's just enough, there's too much going on now that if you did an anthology series, you'd be like, all right, there's so much going on here. So I don't think we need it right now. Might have been a good idea, to do Discovery that, or, whatever, a second show after Discovery would have been besides Picard. But now that we're getting so many, I don't think that we need that. Tardigrade writes, yes, I'm actually I'm doing a video about Baby Yoda and tying it to the tardigrades in Star Trek. That's going to come out in like a month or two. I'm writing it now, so I'm filming it this month. But yeah, I want that plushy tardigrade. I want it so bad. I know there's some other sold ones, but and as much as I'm like, don't support the corporations because I'm a capitalist, or not a capitalist, I'm a communist. But I'm waiting for like the Star Trek branded one because I want to show my support for the show and be like, look, I want to support your merchandise. So I'm hoping they release I'm honestly surprised they haven't released a tardigrade plushie. It kind of shocks me that it's in the episode. They have a tardigrade plushie in The Girl Who Made the Stars. It's so silly that they didn't do that. Let's see. Are you hoping to see Voyager's Doctor in the series? He was very active in the rights for holograms. Would be interesting as he used an anti-Sith motive plus Robert Picardo cameo. Yes, I agree. There is talks that he's supposed to come back for season 2, and it would make sense because he would perfectly fit in this idea of like the synths. So I'm going to turn off that light so it's a little less bright. The idea of the synths in Star Trek, like rights of others, and holograms and synths like Data were always used to like discuss human rights and be an allegory for marginalized people, which is clearly what they're trying to evoke with the Romulans and synths in Star Trek Picard. They're clearly using it as an allegory for, marginalized people today, like trans people or people of color, Hispanic people, especially in the United States. Immigrants in Britain and Brexit, dealing with Brexit. So yes, I think bringing the holograms into that would make perfect sense because holograms should have rights. I mean, there was that whole episode where they were using like EMHs for slavery, which is kind of what they were using the synths for. So it would make perfect sense. And I think they might even be starting to hint at that because there's that one scene where Picard goes into the archive and you see a hologram there. So I think they may be laying the groundwork for holograms being a thing. And obviously Robert Picardo's in talks to come back. It would make perfect sense for that. I will also say, because I'm a book nerd and we were talking about Star Trek books, there is a Star Trek Voyager novel set after Star Trek Voyager where there is a hologram rebellion and holograms start to earn their rights. It's kind of an abandoned plot line in those books, unfortunately, but there is a novel that is about that. So I would very much that. Everyone's got rights in Star Trek except Tuvix. You are correct. Yes. Andre Jones, when will you make more transgender specific videos? I learned so much about you, trans experience from you. I've been trying to do regular trans videos, fairly regular. Like my Captain Picard Day video was about my experience as a trans woman. I'm going to be doing one coming up about my surgeries that I was talking about earlier on in the live stream. So I'm hoping to do more videos on trans stuff. The reason I only don't want to do that is because I want this channel to be. I want to teach about trans stuff, but I don't want it to necessarily just be a trans channel, mostly because my interests go beyond just that, and I don't want to limit what I have to say. I want my goal with this channel is to be someone who talks about. I want to talk about how science fiction teaches us to be better people. That, for me, I am not a religious person. I am not, I was raised Catholic, but I never really identified with that and never really clicked with me. But where I learned my morality, where I learned to be a better person was through science fiction, Star Trek specifically, but Harry Potter, Doctor Who, all of those things. That's where I learned to be a better person. And so the goal of this channel is to say, this is what we can learn from science fiction to be better people. And I'll do that through philosophy. I'll do that through politics. I'll do that through social issues. I'll do that through spiritual issues. I'll do that from personal experience, queer theory, film theory. But that's the goal of this channel, is to talk about how science fiction makes us better people. The stories that science fiction tells makes us better. And kind of treat it as sacred. Not saying sacred in the sense of like science fiction is, we should hold it up as like this perfect thing. It is canon. If you hold shows like Star Trek 2 as too sacred, you get to like the toxic fan, where they're like, you can't change anything, and if you don't like the way that I believe something, then it's my way or the highway. I mean, it's kind of like a religious notion. It's like you either believe what I believe or you don't, or get out or I'll hurt you, kill you, throw you out of my space. And that's what we see in religion, and that's what we're seeing in toxic fans, because we're so enamored with these things. They're so tied up in our identity. And Star Trek is clearly tied up in my identity, but I'm open to like letting people learn and explore and having different values of opinions. And that's what this channel is going to be about. Just like showing like, this is how I connect to it. This is how you can connect to it. But it's all about diverse opinions. And getting back to the original point of the question was, being trans and trans-specific issues will be always be a part of that. Always be a part of that. Because being trans is who I am. And I'm always going to try and teach and learn about that. But it's not going to be the sole focus. But I did say my goal is to do at least one LGBTQ specific video a month. And that I'm going to try and stick to that. I may not always fail. It may just, it depends on like the whims of my brain and what's intriguing to me. My goal is to do at least one LGBTQ focused, generally transgender focused video a month. So that is the goal, and that's what I'm going to try and stick to. And like I said, I do have a few coming up that I have already planned and in the bucket that are trans focused. So there definitely will be some trans related videos out there. Oh my god, I need to check out that novel. I didn't know Robert Picardo was in talks with them. Yeah, I haven't heard much about it, but back way back when like Star Trek Picard season 1 started, there was like rumor mill stuff that like Robert Picardo was in talks for season 2. I haven't heard much about that since. Might have been killed, might have never happened, but my guess is that probably will happen. All right. I have a question, a screen or so up. Seal 02. Let me see if I can find it. Star Doctor. If I miss something, please just reiterate it, just because sometimes it's hard for me to kind of wade through everyone's comments. I'm trying to get to what I can, but unfortunately I can't get to it all, unfortunately. Can you name a decision that a captain has made that you thoroughly disagreed with that you would have done differently? I think I answered this in my last live stream last month, actually, but I think the one that comes to mind is Tuvix. I don't think Tuvix should have died. Didn't like Tuvix, didn't like him as a character. I didn't think Janeway had the right to kill Tuvix. But I think I answered that in a previous live stream, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. You can go with my previous live stream to find that one. But a good question. And I think there are probably more that I would have thought of, but I think that's probably the one that instantly pops in my mind. A trans hologram. I mean, someone posted a comment that I really loved. I think it was on the Captain Picard video that Philippa Lavoie from the episode The Measure Man, she was the judge in charge of Data's trial in the episode Measure Man, that there was they read her as a trans character, that at the beginning of that episode, Philippa is hitting on Captain Picard. And Captain Picard's clearly uncomfortable with it, but he's like, still friends with her. And so someone's like, oh, I kind of read that as like, oh, she was presenting as a man beforehand, and that's the last time Picard saw her as a man. So when they meet again, he's like, oh, okay, you're a girl now. I'm totally affirming of that. But then when she starts hitting on him, he's a little bit uncomfortable with that, which like happens in trans situations. I've definitely been on both sides of that. So there's an interesting read of like Philippa Lavoie's trans, and there's somebody who said that like, being trans is just so normalized in the Federation that no one talks about it. I mean, we clearly see in DS9 that you could have surgeries. Like Quark gets a sex change. I hate to use the term sex change, but that's the term that they kind of use. But he gets a gender-affirming surgery and then changes back, which we can't even do now. You can't even detransition if you have that impulse, which most people don't, but it is a thing. He goes back and forth, and it's just like it's like a quick surgery that they can do on a whim. It's not even like he had to go through any like mental health stuff. He's just like, yeah, you will, whatever. We'll make you a girl and then we'll make you back to a guy again. It's not a big deal. So it's just, I guess it's just so normalized that maybe like that we've met trans characters we just didn't know. I hate that as an answer. That's my headcanon. I do want there to be overtly trans and non-binary characters in the show going forward. And I think Star Trek Discovery Season 3, they said that they're going to do that. So I hope that happens. But that being said, I think that you could read that into it, that like trans people are just, so normalized that no one cares and people just transition and it's not a big deal. David Meir, would you be interested in a Star Trek Anthology series? I actually answered that a little bit up previously in case you missed it. I can think of a way to use the transporter to transition. Yeah, probably. Smeghead. Someone used the term Smeghead. Oh my gosh. Red Dwarf. Love Red Dwarf, one of my favorite shows. I think it's supposed to be coming back again for another series. I'm really hopeful because I've been enjoying even their more recent series. I think it was Red Dwarf X, the 10th season was the only one I thought was actively not even bad, just meh. But Red Dwarf is fantastic. All right, I'm gonna go for about another 5 minutes before we wrap out. Any other final questions before I sort of start wrapping out? Any Picard questions? Any stuff about me? I'll sort of grab any final questions from anybody, and then I'll start wrapping out and giving some final thoughts on some things I want to say before I get off the live stream. I'm also going to see if I can grab any other questions that I may have missed in here. Sorry, I know this is super exciting. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna rewatch a video about Picard and then rewatch Picard him itself. I hope that you enjoy Picard. I loved the first episode of Picard. I think it's a great video. Great series premiere. With you personally, I don't see a trans person. I saw a fun person with great content. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, being trans, one of the things that being trans that I've like wrestled with is like, I don't want to be defined by being trans. And that's kind of hard when I talk about, trans issues all the time. And that's kind of what I don't want to just do trans stuff, because I don't want to define myself as like, look, I'm the trans person. I've always said I want to be the trans person in a nerdy space. I want to be the one who can be like, hey, cool, let's nerd out about this stuff. Isn't this thing awesome and fun and interesting and cool? Like, I love Picard. I love Discovery. Let's talk about Star Wars. Let's talk about Stargate. Let's talk about Battlestar Galactica. Isn't this cool? Let's nerd out. Also, did you know that this particular moment here really spoke to me as a trans person for this reason? And I found that really intriguing, and it really hit me hard as a trans person. Just thought I'd share that with you guys. And then also, let's nerd out and be cool, and let's think about this other thing. And so that's kind of like what I want to kind of do. Speaking of that, I'm actually going to do a video on it, but I'm actually curious if this resonated with any other trans people that might be in the chat. Yennefer in the Witcher series really spoke to me as a trans person. There's that scene, minor spoilers for The Witcher, but there's that scene where she chooses to get the surgery to become beautiful, and that causes her to be able to lose the ability to have kids. And that resonates with me as a trans woman, because to transition, to start hormones as a trans woman, you become infertile. And I'm someone who wants kids, and I saved, my ability, I have, rated R stuff here, a little bit TMI, but I froze sperm so that I'm able to have children, biological children down the line. And I was able to do that because I'm lucky enough to have a family that would be able to pay for that, and insurance that helped with that. But that's Yennefer in the Witcher series really spoke to me as a trans woman, because like by transitioning, I had to make myself infertile, and it was a trade I was willing to make. I am happier because of it, but it is something I am sad about, that I am no longer able to have biological kids through my own body, in terms of like being able to be a part of that process in any way that I could be a part of that process. So it's just something I was speaking about, and I want to do a video about Yennefer and transitions at some point. So I'm just curious if anyone else found Yennefer to be an interesting representation of that. It worked for me, and I think you can read a lot into Yennefer's ability, especially like being someone who's physically disabled or has an impairment, things like that. So I think there's a lot of stuff with her character that I really loved. Sorry again for the plane going overhead, if you guys can hear that. I know I need to read Anime 2124. I need to read the Witcher book series too. I have the audiobooks on my phone, so I'm hoping to do that. Oh my gosh, T-Berg Sci-Fi fan. Thanks for sharing and keeping up your awesome work. Best wishes on the surgery and settling into new space. Thank you so much. You are so wonderful. I really appreciate the super chat. It's really appreciated, and honestly very meaningful whenever someone gives. So thank you so much. Lorcan Nagel, have you seen Sense8? I have. One of my favorite series of all time, and Nomi I think is probably my favorite transgender character in all of science fiction. Probably. I'd have to think about that, but I love Nomi so much. She's a character who is trans, but not defined by being trans. Like her transness was not incidental to the plot. There were plots that came out of her being trans and informed her decisions as a character. Like she would be able to relate to characters through her transness, but she was never defined by her transness. She was probably better defined by her hacking ability. She was a hacker, and her ability to hack things was what influenced the plot more than her being trans. Yeah, I think So I really just love trans characters. I think that's how trans characters should be written. Them unless the story is about trans issues and trans rights and things like that, which is a totally legitimate story to tell. Unless it is about that, I think trans characters who are part of stories should just be part of should just be part of their backstory. Their transness shouldn't be incidental. It should be something that, you shouldn't just have like a trans character just to have a trans character. It should be like, if they're trans, them being trans will probably inform their thoughts and feelings and decisions on something and how they connect with people. But it should not be the defining feature. Like, if you were to write me as a character in a story, you'd probably define me more as like a Trekkie nerd than you would by my transness alone. So that's I adore Sense8 for that. Plus, it's a strange series. As Wellington says, Sense8 is a beautiful, weird series. Need more like it. Yes, we do. And Fractal Opinion, getting tips is better than super chats. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. So, Dreamer and Supergirl is a great representation too as well, Christy. Speaking of which, Christy, since you're in here, I sent you a message on Twitter if you, just so you know, because we were talking about something else. So if you check that out before the end of the day, so we can talk to each other. But Christy, nice to see you here as well. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to start to wrap up because I got some packing to do for today. So just a couple wrap out things. Next week, I'm going to try and film a couple of videos today, but next week might be a little bit lighter on content just because I'm moving. I'll definitely be doing my Picard review. I'm hoping to get it up in time that night. It might be a little bit later than I'll normally do just because I'll be moving that. I'm actually moving that day. So I'm hoping to get to my review that evening, but I might be tired. I might be, not have stuff set up. So we'll see where I'm at. But there will be a review of Picard next week. It might be a little bit later than I normally do, but it will be right after the episodes moving forward after next week. So you might see a little bit less videos from me next week, but I'm hoping to have at least a couple. But it might be a little bit lighter just because of the move. Also, just the normal rigmarole. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment on my videos. That really means a lot. It helps me get boosted. One of the things I'm really proud of is that how much this channel has grown, but also the community here. I look at other videos, not to compare and be like, I'm better than these people. I'm not, because I think there are many wonderful people on YouTube making many wonderful videos. But the thing I'm proud of is while my videos may not get the biggest views in the world, they do solid. And I'm really proud and happy of that. But I am so glad for the comments and this engagement on all the videos, because I think looking at things, I have more comments and engagements on my videos than anything else. And I think that speaks to the fact that you all are just so thoughtful and wonderful and kind. I'm not trying to be like, yeah, you're wonderful. Just, I'm not trying to just say that to say that. I am just very thankful that the amount of comments and thoughtfulness that my videos and channel is able to facilitate is it's heartening to me, and I'm so thankful for it. You guys are all phenomenal, wonderful, and I'll second what Christy just typed in the chat. Live long and prosper, all of you beautiful people. You guys are all beautiful people and all wonderful, and I am so thankful for all of that. So thank you to all of you. Any other thing that I wanted to say before? Oh, the only other thing is, if I may self-promote one thing before I go, I did a video yesterday that came out yesterday on Watchmen. That's called Watchmen and the Cruelty of Masks. I am super, super proud of that video. But unfortunately, it didn't get a lot of pickup in the YouTube algorithm. So if any of you, if you do want to help me directly right now, besides financially supporting, if you could just, after this live stream ends, run over to that video and just either watch it all the way through or just hit the like. Even if you just hit the like button on it, I would be so thankful for it, just because it's honestly a video I'm rather proud of. And if it doesn't do well, that's fine. I'm fine with videos not doing well, as long as I made something that I'm proud of. That's what matters more to me, and people that watch it. But, I always like to try and boost the things that I'm proud of. So if you get a chance to go over to that Watchmen video and just at least give it a like, if you haven't watched Watchmen, that's totally fine. Just at least just give it a like. I'd be very appreciative. But other than that, thank you, everyone. I am so thankful for all of you, and thank you for everything that you've done. Yes, there are, I will say in that video, there are a little bit of spoilers for the show. So if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't watch the whole video, but at least if you can give it a like, I'd be appreciative. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Hopefully once I move into my new apartment next month, I'm hoping to try and do more live streams. I want to try and do some live streams after Picard, like the weekend after Picard, so we can do like more live streams directly focused on talking about Picard. Maybe I'll even bring on some guests if I can, is my goal. But I'll do that once I know more about the move, once I'm more settled into my space. All right, everyone, I need to get off. I keep wanting to stay on because I just enjoy this, but you guys are all lovely. Thank you so much for your kindness and just being beautiful people. And I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. I hope all of you, as always, live long and prosper.